Welcome to Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth and friend of the show, Sharon Crowley from the Om Center of Healing. And we're in studio today with Kathy Van Gilder, who is an animal communicator, and we are delighted to have her with us. Thank you so much for saying yes to coming on Exploring Sovereignty.
Of course, Elizabeth, I'm so happy to be here and talk with you both.
Welcome. Very excited.
Definitely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, because many of our listeners, this may be a new concept too, to have an animal communicator. And one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on, and Sharon, I think, also shares this with me, is both of us love animals. And for the longest time growing up, I always felt a unique or close connection with the animal world. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, many times more than humans.
You are not alone. Very common.
So tell us, what is an animal communicator for those who this may be a new concept to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So animal communicators, what we do is we are the bridge, typically the conduit, the telephone line, whatever you want to call it, between an animal and a human. So, if people are having questions about, it's, typically a pet, sometimes it might be an animal that they just see, in the wild that comes and visits them often, but most of the time it's a pet. And horses are included in that, of course. And people have questions. They don't know what's going on with them. Maybe they have an issue. Maybe they're showing some strange behavior. Maybe they just rescued them and they're not sure what's going on. Usually it's some kind of question, some kind of issue. Sometimes people just want to feel more connected and understand them better too. So it's that. And then the animal communicator acts as a conduit between the two. So an animal communicator can connect up with an animal through telepathic communication, which is through images, thoughts, or feelings. And they receive that information from the animal, and then an animal communicator would tell the human about it. So that's, in simplest form, that's how it works.
That's awesome. And you've been doing this for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. I have.
How did you get into it?
Yeah, how did you get started? Tell us.
Well, I've always, and I know we were chatting just a tiny bit about this before, but I've always felt a connection to animals. I can't remember as a kid not being able to communicate with animals. I don't have an aha moment. Some people I think might say that. I didn't have any. It just was always a thing for me. I could connect up and feel what the robin in the backyard felt, and the squirrel and the neighbor's cat and all of that. But the kind of funny, I don't know if it's funny, but the interesting part about that, and there's a story behind this, is my dad was a biology major biology teacher. And so he loved the outdoors. So we would go on hikes in nature, areas and parks, and we would go camping all the time. But he loved the intellectual part of it. So he would talk about, from an intellectual standpoint, the tree and, the tree and, and this is this kind of tree and here's this leaf and here's the seed that comes from that. And, here's this animal track and that's this animal and here's why. And, so it was a lot of head-based. That was very interesting to him and not at all interesting to me. So I was on the other side, right? I'm on the other side of my brain and I'm connecting with the trees and I can feel them and the animals around and the birds and the squirrels and the bunnies and whatever else is around. And I can feel it all. And I feel one with them and I'm connecting. And what the interesting part about this is, and I feel like the setup maybe for me to work through, was that my family was very, not interested in anything beyond the five senses, and in fact, actually really afraid. So I learned very early on to pretend to be interested and then just be on that other side, doing my own thing, but I couldn't really talk about it to anyone. And, I was a sensitive child. I'm sure both of you were too, psychic, could pick up things, things about people, all of that. So there was that whole thing going on. And then eventually, as we get older, I learned to shut down. It was easier, and I wasn't making waves, and it just didn't work anymore. So I shut down. The doors never close, it never fully closes, but I just stopped listening and really stopped being in my authentic self and sensitive and all of that. So I went into a career, fast forward, I went into a career of healthcare and disease prevention. That was my thing. I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. And pretty quickly, because it was very physical body oriented. Mm-hmm. And I learned, and I think Elizabeth, maybe you can relate to that. And I learned that very early on that is not working, just because we're addressing the physical stuff. And this was a long time ago. This was like in the 80s. So that was I was sort of breaking ground. People were like, huh, what are you talking about? So I was given the gift, I think, from my soul to be able to have the freedom to be able to explore some of this within certain boundaries and be able to bring some of this to my field, which was so great, and learn about myself in the process. So that was all happening, and I was starting to reawaken and open up. But it wasn't until a friend of mine introduced me to this intuitive healer, and who really helped me open that doorway again. So I did a few sessions with him. He cleaned up some things, a lot of stuff, actually. Yeah. I needed that little boost, I think, to be able to get that doorway open, and everything reopened, and my sensitivity reopened. It was a shock, actually, because, when you go from not being very sensitive or sort of sensitive, but ignoring it, to, whoa, everything is, falling at me. And what am I seeing? And, all of these things. So anyway, I did that. And then a friend of mine and I decided to we could feel the call of our soul that we were really going to help people. And we were both intuitive, and that seemed like that was the way to go, become some kind of an intuitive healer. So we opened a space and did that for a while. And I knew something was missing. I was like, this isn't quite right. I know I'm a healer or some kind of healer. I don't know what this is. So one day I was watching television, and this animal communicator came on, and I was like, what is she doing? Oh my gosh. And I mean, I sort of knew about animal communicators, but I really hadn't seen one in action. And so I was watching her and just so intrigued. And it was like a lightning bolt. It just hit me. And I was like, this is me. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I had animals in my life who were trying to show me the same thing at the same time. A cat who, not my cat, a friend of mine's cat, who would listen to everything I said, my words, and do it. Go sit over there. Go. He would do it all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was like, wow, what's happening? And I was a photographer too. I still am, and was doing family photography, and sometimes they would bring pets, and oh, that was awesome, of course, for me. And, sometimes they'd bring a lot of pets, 3 or 4, and that can be a challenge, you can imagine. And I would get them all set up, and I would turn around and walk back, and compose the shot, and they'd all be staring at me, looking perfectly at the camera. So there were all these signs, and there was a lot going on. So, and they really taught me, and then once I started doing it, they really taught me about how animals are really here to help people, because that was the one missing link that I didn't understand, which is, well, wait a minute. I thought I was going to be healing people. I thought I was going to help with that. And they helped me see very quickly, oh, wait, no, no, there's a doorway there, and here's where it is. So that's how I got into it.
Well, that is one of my questions for you is, did the animals in your life through this journey reflect where you were at with the journey, and then further help you to either shed things that needed to be shed or gain insight?
Oh, absolutely. So, I was already working on myself, as I shared, I had already started that journey. So the animals were just enhancing that. And right. So I can say that, every animal, I think I counted the other day, I went, I've had 9 in my life. Every single one brought a gift, even the ones that I didn't know about, or that I didn't know before I didn't know about my gift. I had a dog when I was in my 20s and then into my 30s, who would lick my face all the time. She was so loving, and I would be, why are you, only me. And she was a lab. So, labs are.
I have a lab. I love the lab.
Yes, exactly. And so kind and wonderful and loving, but licking my face. And I've learned since then, I'm trying to open you up. I'm trying to open you up. And she was trying to bring, more lightheartedness to my life. And I took everything so seriously. And on down the line, each one has brought different gifts for me.
Well, you mentioned too that the animals are here to help humans heal and to work with us and partner with us. How can you explain that a little bit more for our listeners here and how you had your experience that?
Absolutely. So they do kind of, I guess what most of us would see as the obvious thing. So they hold that vibration of love. You may not have thought it quite that way, but that's what they do. They live in that frequency of love. They don't have egos like we do. They're just wired that way. They've come in to support us. I really see them as part of the angelic realm, having souls like that, because that's how they can give. And they're just, unconditional lovers and givers. So they come in and they hold that vibration and they hold that frequency. Even animals in the wild, the trees do that, nature does that for us. And they can show us unconditional love, who many people haven't ever experienced unconditional love from humans, or very, very little. And that animal can really help them start to experience that and feel what it's like. And once you get that unconditional love, you feel so much safer. It's like that blast of mother's love, right? That you never had. And all of a sudden you're safer and you can get out of fear and maybe see things in a little bit different light, right? In your life, and go, wow, okay, this isn't working for me. Let's move in a different direction. So they do those things. They also love to deliver messages telepathically. So that's where that animal communication comes in, where, they'll tell you, hey, especially an animal that lives with you, that you're connected with, they know everything about you. Everything.
Yes, they do.
And they know your secrets. And now I have to preface that, because some people are, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do a session with my dog because he's going to say that I'm rotten. And I say, oh, no. I have never heard that out of any animal, not once. They see truth. They're going to express truth, but they say it with such love and non-judgmental language. And so you just never have to worry about that. They're going to tell you the truth, but they're not going to say it in a way that won't hurt your feelings. It might be like shocking for a second, but it won't hurt your feelings. So they love to deliver messages about, hey, that job's not working for you, or that relationship, no, just generic things. I mean, they're just so gifted at it. But they also love to deliver information through their bodies, their physical bodies too. They self-sacrifice. And again, I love to explain this to people so they understand that, animals have come for a different reason than we've come. And that is okay for them they take on things. They say,
I keep telling my dog, Lyle, like, let it go. Something will be happening within the family structure, and I'll be watching it transform as people are healing or working through something, because we're always in process, right? And my dog will try to take it on. I'm like, no, your job's to hold and anchor love and joy. Don't let it transform and leave. And so we'll work together. But sometimes I feel like I'm healing or clearing with my family, and then it's like we're working together to make sure it clears all the way out and Lyle doesn't hold on to it.
Yeah. And that's a great story, Elizabeth. And that's so true. And, the other thing that they love to tell us about and remind us about, they remind me often, is about, it's not the feelings we're feeling, it's the feelings we're not acknowledging. right?
Oh, that's interesting.
That's big.
If you're crying inside, they're not going to take that on. You don't need to worry. You're feeling it. It's going. It's leaving. It's the ones that we hang on to and we don't acknowledge. So it's what we're not acknowledging that they want to help with.
That resonates. Dang, Kathy.
That is a big one to chew on. Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Huh.
Yeah. So they help us with our physical bodies. If your animal gets hurt, gotta look inside. It's time to look inside and go, oh, do I have a wound? What's going on with me? There is, and it could be anyone in the family. Like you said, Elizabeth, it doesn't necessarily the person they're most connected with. It can be anyone because they'll work with everyone who they live with. So yeah, injuries, some weird ailment shows up. It's time to take a look because they're absorbing it. So it's sort of like when we start to look at our bodies and go, oh, wow, I have the symptom. What's going on? It's the same thing with your pet. You need to look at, I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's amazing. Okay, we're going to take a pause, but we're going to continue the conversation because this is fascinating. We are with Kathy Van Gilder, an animal communicator, and we are exploring sovereignty with our animals and humans and the earth itself as we continue this conversation. Stay tuned. This is Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth and friend of the show, Sharon Crowley from the Om Center of Healing. And we're in studio with the delightful Kathy Van Gilder, who is an animal communicator and had made that transition from working in healthcare and reopening the gifts and talents and attributes you have always had from a very young age and discovering that the journey for you helping people heal is by being an animal communicator, which is brilliant because our four-legged and two-legged and winged friends and fin friends are always, I think, communicating and holding a frequency that all living consciousness can shift into. So, okay, we get these little moments and breaks to have a conversation, and I'm going to bring the listeners in on it for a moment. As I was sharing that a friend of mine has a dog, and who gets to be in meetings or come to work, and this dog sometimes likes to lay on because the dog gets to sit on the table. And if papers are being presented, sometimes the dog will want to lay on the papers. And I'm like, what's all that about? And delightful dog, beautiful dog, sweet, sweet, sweet dog. And Kathy, you had a brief insight on that.
Well, she is an incredible dog, first of all, and loves her human so much. So much.
Agreed. So, I think it goes both ways, but yes. Absolutely.
Oh, it does. Yeah. She is completely devoted and loves him. So when an animal comes and I can speak to this situation in particular, and lays on papers, often that can be, and in this case, it's a dog. She's a dog. So, and there goes my dog in the background. And so dogs typically represent our hearts and how, if we need attention or affection, oftentimes they can show us about that, but they really represent our hearts and they love to show us about our hearts. So chances are, on that paper, something with that paper or that presentation or whatever this person is doing, there's something she's reminding this person to really connect back up with their heart. Maybe they've got out of body, maybe they've gotten not grounded. Maybe there's something they're uncomfortable with in those papers. There's something that needs to be attended to, whether it's you go take a break and get grounded, or you don't like what's in this paper and these papers, or something around those lines.
And that could either be for the person the dog is connected to, or for the person that is receiving the papers, right?
Most often it will be for the person that, the human that they belong,
That
they're helping. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, most of the time in that situation, that's what it feels like to me.
Got
And
it.
it was a message for him to pay attention a little more
Yeah.
closely.
Well, those papers continued to be transformed. So that's
Oh, they were in a transformation process. I
yeah.
see.
Like, what's this going to look like? And so,
So in that case, she was saying, this isn't quite right. This isn't a reflection of what you want in your heart with these to be. It needs to change somehow.
got it.
It's like a spiritual service animal.
No doubt.
They're therapists.
Yes,
Yeah, they are.
Absolutely.
And so dogs represent the heart.
Very much about the heart. Oftentimes affection, the affection we might need, or attention we might need to give ourselves, but very much about the heart. Happiness, joy, all of those things. Yep. Cats, do you want me to, or do you want to?
Yes.
Yeah. You're just waiting for me to talk about cats. So cats it's feline, right? So they're feelings. They represent our feelings. And they can often show us that. They're also all about passion. Think about cats, and they get such a bad rap because, like, well, they're not always loving. They do what they want to do. Yeah, they do. They show us about that. They show us, hey, you know what? You may not like that, but maybe you like that. Go for it. Be passionate. Find your passion. Do your passion. Do what excites you. So do you kind of see where that's going and how
Yeah.
that works?
So is that more about sense of self than it is heart, or is it, I don't know, logical thinking, focused? Are there better words than heart as it relates to, heart?
You're talking about the cat?
Yes, cat is to like another part of us.
Yeah, it's just like almost a different vibration of it, even though we can lump all that together. Heart and feelings and passion and all of that. It's a little bit different vibration, you can, if you think of it that way. So heart is really the child in our heart. If I say it that way, that may make more sense. So, our little child, what does our little child want? What does our little child need? Feelings, it's feelings that you're not feeling. That's usually what cats will tell you. Hey, you're not acknowledging your feelings. And papers, if a cat lays on your papers on your computer screen, there's definitely something going on. Like, come on now.
My cat is constant with that. I don't know what to think of that.
Interesting.
I thought she just liked the heat.
Well, there might be part of that, but no, there's definitely a message. Horses represent ego. They don't have an ego, but they look like they do, right? To us,
yeah.
They do. But it's all about ego and power.
I was like, could you expand on that, like an example of where you really saw that with a horse and a horse owner?
Yeah. So if for instance, if you get thrown off your horse, right, you get hurt and all that, it's either you're not comfortable with your own power, or you don't like the power that you have, or something about your power. You're not comfortable with it, or you're too much in your ego. It could be that too. But
interesting. So my family and I go out west to the Tetons frequently in the summer to camp, and we ride horses. And one of us had a horse that his name was Newt. He liked to go down sideways and I was like, we were laughing. I mean, we could not stop laughing at this, because every time we had to do a decline, this horse went sideways with my husband on it. And so the boys and I could not stop laughing about it. And Pete was like holding on, but
so what do you think that is?
Well, I think, if reflecting on what you are sharing is like maybe not taking the most direct route with your power and ego, and that maybe a more circuitous route instead of a more direct route.
Safe.
Wanting safety.
I need to go a little slower. I need to be safe.
Yeah, that resonates.
Well, and that gets me also thinking about not everybody is comfortable with horses. They can be intimidating to some people.
Very 1,000-pound animals that you don't know.
So then does that reflect in the human that maybe the human is not as comfortable
Absolutely
with their power?
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. I was chatting with a client the other day about their horse, and she had been going through, she didn't tell me this, but she had been going through some family drama. Her mother had passed, and there was some legal stuff they had to figure out. And I think the attorneys were she told me this after, being a little bullying her and wanting her to, settle how they wanted her to settle. And anyway, there was a different path. And she knew that her mom was trying to, guide her to this other path. But she brought up her horse. And she told me this later, but she brought up her horse before that and said, Kathy, I don't know what's going on with him. I think does he not like his food? He seems to be really agitated and not listening to me. He normally listens to me. He's backing up almost into me. It's terrifying. He's 1,000 pounds. I love him, but it's really scary. And I said, and this is the message straight from him. It was, don't let your ego, and in this case, her ego was, I'm afraid. I'm not going to follow through. My ego says, shrink, right? And don't speak up. And her horse said, no, you need to speak up and follow that path that is true. And so that's what she did. But they are amazing. I was just talking to a horse, was it yesterday? And
I love that sentence. Can we just pause on that sentence for a second?
Well, okay. And with this, it's I don't always remember all the stories because you're so in the moment and you're just you're just channeling it in and saying it, and then you need to leave it. So I don't. But this horse was incredible, and you guys will love this story. So this woman hired me. And then we got on the call and it was a different person. And I was like, oh, okay. What's going on? Well, this horse was in rehab in a totally different state. And so this person that got on the call said, well, I'm facilitating the call. She couldn't be on the call, or I don't know, something happened. So, we were recording so she could hear it anyway. And really, bottom line is, so they were worried. And I said, well, the horse has trauma. Yeah, we kind of figured. And so we talked through that a little bit. But what happened was, and this I guess it doesn't surprise me, but it does, because it's amazed, not surprised, but amazed, I guess. Yeah. So this horse was helping this human. And right away, she had a message for her human who wasn't even there for 5 minutes. I think I delivered a message about the trauma and how they'd similar and, all this detail about all of that. And then she turned to the rehab person who was an energy healer and said, I'm going to help you. So this horse experienced trauma, right? And like we talked about earlier, the self-sacrifice, went through that trauma, but it's so not like us, because yes, she has the symptoms of the trauma and all of that, but it's the purpose is to help these humans. So she's helping this rehab, the energy worker, really help gain her confidence, healing ability, and she's helping her human at the same time. And I was like, oh wow, I guess it doesn't ever stop.
Isn't that beautiful? And I really am starting to think that we are drawn to those animals for that reason. So if we're drawn to horses, or we're drawn to dogs, or we're drawn to cats, it's based on what our soul is working through.
Very much so. And it's all orchestrated behind the scenes. So that animal always picks you, always.
Oh, tell us more about that.
Well, and it can change. This is something I've learned over the years. There can be an agreement and all of that made, but sometimes it changes, or a human rejects the animal. I've certainly talked to animals where that happens, and I got to stay in the detached mode and go, okay, because the animals are able to do that. So we can learn from that.
We've really wanted this kitten, but half my family is allergic to kittens. And the other half, everyone wanted the kitten, but we couldn't.
How long ago was that?
I keep thinking about this kitten. This was like a year ago. We were going to name him Messy. He was this little gray kitten.
That was a possibility for sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, it's fine. Messy has another home and all of that, but there's always opportunity.
I'm sure he's not named Messy anymore.
No.
It was after the soccer player, just so we're clear. Not that
yeah, so they all choose us, and they come in at just the right time.
right?
When they leave at just the right time. So it's they choose us, and they choose us. They have personalities, that mirror us. They can mirror back messages through their bodies, all sorts of things.
It's amazing, really. I mean, there's so much here. It's so rich, and what you're doing is so needed in the world as the vibration shifts on the planet and everyone's being asked to move more into that love frequency. How can people find you who might want to work with you, who are listening? And what are you offering? And we'll talk more about it in the next segment too, but.
Okay. Yeah. My website is probably the best place to find everything I have there. It's my name, kathyvangilder.com. And I have, everything from courses to one-on-one sessions. And I have a book, and you can get a signed message if you want. All sorts of different things. So that's probably the best place to find me. I offer coaching sessions too, if you want to learn more how to connect with your pet, not just have a session, but, learn more about how do I connect with my pet? Why are they here? You can go deeper.
Amazing. I love it. And you also do photography, right?
Yeah, I'm a pet photographer. I did family photography for a long time too, but now it's just pets, and sometimes, the humans, and that's actually really fun to bring in the humans and capture that connection and that specialness.
That's awesome.
I bet you can capture them in a way that not many photographers can.
Well, I love to bring out the heart.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
I suppose when you can see their heart, right?
Yeah. It's the energy. It's just that energy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to continue this conversation with Kathy Van Gilder, who's an animal communicator with great talent and passion for connecting with our animals and all the loved ones around us, as we continue exploring sovereignty with Elizabeth and friend of the show, Sharon Crowley, as my guest co-host. And we'll be back, so stay tuned. This is Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth and friend of the show, Sharon Crowley. We're in studio speaking with Kathy Van Gilder, an animal communicator who has great talent and passion for connecting with those loved animals of ours and helping us develop a more intimate connection and communication style with our animals. And so, Kathy, okay, I think and believe, and Lyle has communicated this to me, that he reincarnated. He was my childhood dog in this life and came back for the resolution of what happened in my childhood. And he communicated that to me a few years ago and was very direct about it. Do you see, I mean, you can answer about Lyle too, but do you see that happens with people, that there's reincarnation of pets from lifetime to lifetime or within lifetimes? And if you want to, chime in on anything on Lyle, you're welcome to, but don't feel pressure to.
Well, to answer your question, yes, they often come back. If you have an animal that you are very connected with, so often they will come back. And the key is to not go search for them. So if, often there's a plan, even when they leave. So, I communicate a lot with people who are, is it time for I don't know. Is it time for my animal to leave? Do they need assistance? What do they need? And they often so want to know if they're going to come back. And And the answer usually is yes. If you have a pet that you are very connected with, it's either that or they will be orchestrating behind the scenes some soul that's even better that you need for that time in your life. So they're always working. They're always working for you. Even if they stayed in heaven and they brought another soul with, it's the same. I've got a cat right now. His name is Cosmos, and he is the twin. It's a different situation, but this can happen too. He is the twin soul of our other cat, Gabriel. So we have Gabriel in heaven and Cosmos here so that we can get, double the trouble and double the help, right?
Right.
So yeah, but that can happen. So, and they don't necessarily, if it's the same lifetime, what I find is often it'll be the same type of animal, maybe not the same breed necessarily, but often it will be, because that's kind of what your heart wants. And the animal knows what you'll respond to best. But yeah, they can come, and then they can come in lifetime after lifetime. So we call that a spirit animal. Mm-hmm. Kind of, you can think of it like your guardian angel, right? Totally. But they're an animal in the flesh coming here, and they are in fur or scales or feathers, and they are here to help you, and they will continue to support you. So it happens a lot of different ways. Sometimes it can just be an animal that comes in for a blip, a short amount of time. We had a dog that did that, and we needed him for that reason, a specific reason. So with Lyle, Lyle loves you, Elizabeth, so much. He's got the most tender heart and the biggest heart. And, he's just so loving. I can't get over his energy.
Yeah,
he's just so
he
wonderful.
Is like butter. That's a good idea.
My goodness. So yes, he's come back, and he said, but Elizabeth, just so you know, it's not just for the wound. It's also for you. He wants your soul and your heart. He brings you so much happiness and joy.
Totally.
So he says, don't forget about that piece, because that's a big piece of it too. And he said, you're so comfortable with him that it's okay. You can let down and feel, and you can be your authentic self no matter what. Now, this is true for a lot of people with their animals, but I can really feel it with Lyle. To be yourself with him in a way that you can't with anyone else. And he's so honored to serve in that role. And he reminds you, now I'm going on. So I'll say one more thing, and then
keep going.
Elizabeth, he reminds you of often that you need care, because often you will go and take care of the kids or whatever and do other things. And he's the one, I think he looks at you. He's showing me he looks at you sometimes. He gives you looks. Sometimes he stops you. He says he stops you from doing that and really reminds you. So he'll
sometimes come in and if I'm doing something in the morning, like brushing my teeth or washing my face, he'll sit there and then he'll let me do his eyes, like put some water in, and then he'll join me for my morning routine.
So one more thing about the animals that's important to know is that I don't think we always think about, but they remind me of this often. When we care, even though they're here for us, which is hard for us to remember, but that's true. They're here for us, but we do take care of them, right? We give them food and water and we brush them. All of those things the animals say helps us.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here because now I have a burning question. So I've got a lot of animals.
She does.
And so in the case of my home, I did have, a singular golden retriever that really felt like my dog, and she passed. And then we ended up with another golden retriever and a Newfoundland, and I inherited a lab as well. And so now there's a lot of chaos in my house. So I have a lot of questions in this, but I'm wondering, when there's more than one animal in the house, is there an agreement ahead of time, or is it something they have to work out based on, we've drawn these animals to us, somebody in the family perhaps Do
Right.
they have to an agreement where they have to work it out, or is it something that happens ahead of time?
So they're always mirroring. They're always a mirror. They're always helping us to see. So
Yes.
they don't really have anything to work out, but it might look that way. And it looks that way to us, right?
Okay.
So sometimes when there's conflict between animals, it can show us about maybe some unhealed conflict with a relationship or with ourselves, or, whatever it might be. It can show us that. Some animals, I find, it's kind of funny to say it this way, you'll laugh probably, but prefer to work alone.
Yes. Yeah.
And some are happy to have support and help. And sometimes there's so much work to be done if there's a lot of people or just a lot going on that they need support. It's like, it's too much. So
I think that's probably absolutely true about my house. But I have this Newfoundland, which she's just pure love. She is just a little honey. But this Newfie wants me to spend most of my evenings petting her, and she'll get on the couch and say, "Pet me." And more than once, it's popped into my head, like, what are you giving back here? What's going on where I'm just petting you all day long, which I do feel very peaceful when I do. But it's very interesting.
I think you might have answered your question.
Right? But the other dogs.
We did before, too.
What's that?
We did earlier, too.
Yeah.
So, so you can look at it two different ways. It's the same. It's the same exact thing. One is, oh, she knows you need it. She knows you need love. And the other is, I'm mirroring back to you. You need attention. It's the same thing. No, it doesn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's just such a fantastic thing. I love the chaos in my home, but there's a lot of people and there's a lot of animals. So
the animals they're doing okay. They're okay. They would like it to be just a little calmer, or at least to have some quiet time, because they need that.
Absolutely.
And they're showing me a picture of they really would like to go outdoors a fair amount, because what do? They get grounded. Right?
Yeah.
They can clear that a little easier for them.
They
So
do.
so that's a good thing. They're all working really hard over there, and they love you. They all love it. And I can tell you, they all love their jobs. Not one I've heard that they didn't. Not from one.
That's good to know. I find this so fascinating, because I've always been so drawn to animals, and I do feel safe. That's a place where I always feel safe, is with the animals.
Totally.
It's like it's almost like, but they have personalities and it's a little bit different, but it's almost like hugging a tree.
Right? Yes,
it is.
I love hugging trees.
Well, and I think that's a vibration and frequency thing, isn't it?
It is.
Because
that's not a coincidence. It's absolutely true. Yeah. And think about a cat's purr. Right. And the vibration of that, and the healing.
That's a vibration. You bet.
I had a dog, Emma, who used to take the dirty dishes out of our sink and put them in the middle of the middle of the living room, and lick them clean and leave them there.
Wow.
She was brilliant, but I was like, I would come home and I'd be like, and this is like right after we had our first boy. So I think she was
totally. It was the mess. It was the mess. And yeah.
I'm going to clean this up.
Yes. It totally was. Totally the metaphor.
You were brilliant.
Yep. But it's also showing you what was going on too at the same time. Yeah.
I was a hot mess after my first baby.
Understandably. But
there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's interesting, because I have for many years had the viewpoint, when I look at other people, that their animals mirror them, so that it's almost like they take on some of their burdens and some of their joys and those things. But this idea that you're presenting me today is something that is such an aha, where to be able to understand that they're reflecting and helping me is such a wonderful.
And that they're conscious of it completely.
That they're conscious, and that they've chosen us.
Yeah.
Is so, and that they help us absorb and transmute some of our denser energies, so that we can move into more of that frequency of love and that higher vibration feeling and thinking state that is the full potential of a human.
Right.
And we're here to manifest that at this time on the planet and going forward.
Right. And the animals are even more involved than they used to be because of
100%.
Right. And it was just
sharing. I like sharing more downloads. They share far more with me than they used to.
Oh, that's fascinating. I remember when I was young, I would animals would get hurt in my backyard and I would wrap them up and take my doll bottles and fill them with water. And then I'd make my parents bring them to the vet. I'm like, we gotta
yeah, we do that.
I was like, this animal, this bunny, this bird,
And remember though, there's a message there always, even with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. If they get hurt, if they hit your window, what's going on? Yeah.
What can't you see? That's right. In plain sight.
Right. Or a glass can be illusion.
Oh, yeah.
What is illusion? What are you not seeing? What do you need to break through?
Yeah.
That you didn't. So yeah, there's so many. I had a cat the other day that was telling her human about, I said, oh, she sings. And she goes, well, I don't know, Kathy, if she sings. And I said, well, she uses her voice. She says she's singing. And I said, is that something because she's telling me it's all for you and, you need to take notice. And I said, do you sing? She goes, no, but I do sound. I love to do sound out of my voice. And I said, well, she goes, she does it all the time. I'm like, yeah.
Okay, I feel like we could talk to you for 8 more hours. And unfortunately, we're winding down. But I want to make sure that people, where are you located? Do you work with people all over the world? How can they connect with you?
That and the course.
And the course,
available too.
Yeah. So I am in Minnesota, but I work with people all over the country and anyone in Europe and anyone who can speak English, since that's my only language I can speak fluently anyway. So
yeah.
So anyone anywhere really. And I'm sorry, what else did you ask?
Oh, and how can people find you?
Right. So my website's the really great place to start. Everything is there, kathywangilder.com. I've got courses on there. I've got a course on how to talk to animals. And in that course, I was guided to put information about who animals are, what their roles are. It's not a very long course. It's only about 2 hours. So it's pretty digestible, but it really will teach you kind of a background of animals and then also how to start communicating with them. And the vibration, the meditation that I have in there is a frequency.
You have a free visualization that people can work with, and also a YouTube channel.
I do. Yep. So I have a visualization, and I think that Elizabeth will include the link there. You can get that and you can connect up with your animal right away and try that. If you want to go further, take the course I was just talking about. I have a YouTube channel that I'm going to be putting. It's fairly new, so there's not much on there, but I will be putting a lot of videos on there actually about decoding animals' messages and things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy Van Gilder. This is Elizabeth and Sharon with Exploring Sovereignty, finding pathways that set yourself free with heart-centered thought leaders. And Kathy, you are definitely one of those. So thank you for your time and generosity today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just been a joy talking to you both.
Oh my gosh, so fun.